absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once, if you would.
You want to see it?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
If there's a more over open in podcast, I don't know what it is, because that is a podcast of the preeminent. Well, that's the open for the preeminent podcast about the AWA or something like that. I know we've done this show damn near 100 times. I don't know. We're good. It's a good open. It's a good podcast. We got good listeners, right? I mean, that's kind of it.
It's a terrific show open. And once again, kudos to Mr. Chupik for putting that one together. It was absolutely great. Well done. And yes, it is. Outside of when we say goodbye, that is definitely the most over part of the show.
Part of people come for the open and then they just fast forward to the end when we leave.
Chris, I got a question for you. What did you do to the real Mick Karch? Because he just gave me a compliment.
We got 59 minutes left, buddy.
That explains. Enough said. I just wanted to make sure. But you are indeed Mick Karch, right? Just
last I checked, I should be here any minute now.
Okay.
Okay. We got a little bit of a pivot today, guys. We were going to talk about lesser known AWA champions, but then I think, Mick, we just kind of got to talking about all of the questions that we've still got, and they continue. Oh, and I think I just got another one. We've got so many questions that I think you suggested, and I think it's a good idea. Let's continue to just answer people's questions, because I have a feeling if we don't continue to do this and stay on top of it, we will be so inundated with it. So I think if it's okay with you guys, we'll do another no DQ&A.
Works for me. And I mean, those questions do keep right on coming. It's just amazing. I mean, we're not soliciting them. They just come in every day. We get the emails, we get the DMs, and it's great. Very popular feature on our podcast. So let's keep it going.
Let's do it.
All right. Before we do that, want to ask you guys, you can see on the bottom, join our AWA Unleashed fans page on Facebook. I know we don't really promote that a lot, but if you're not a part of it, definitely do. Also, the best way to help us grow you guys is the AWA Unleashed YouTube channel.
Yes,
that's the best way. Hit the subscribe button and keep an eye out for around the first of the year, because we're going to be coming on episode 100, and I have a feeling around that time we're working on some things that I have a feeling people are really going to like. It's going to take some time to implement, but we're going to take AWA Unleashed to the next level. And I think you guys want to be a part of that. I think, is that fair to say? I mean, we're working on things. I don't want to say what they are, but I have a feeling we've got things that I hopefully are going to be really well received.
It's the wrestling world. There was always that caveat in the programs, programs subject to change.
Yep.
So, we try to keep it, flexible and fluid. But yeah, I agree with you with the stuff that we've got, at least on tap, on the drawing board. 2024 is going to be fun. Going to be a good year for us.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Hey, Mick, you want to move your camera down a little bit? I can't believe I want to say this, but I want to see
you want to see more of him?
I want to see more of Mick. Yeah, you gotta.
Just a minute. Hang on just a minute.
Whoa.
Hang on. Oh, you don't want to see that much. Okay, hang on.
Is that your orthopedic hemorrhoid pillow? What is that?
Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Thanks to Soda Stick and Seventh Avenue Pizza as well for being some sponsors here. All right, guys. I know we got a lot of stuff to get to. Mick, this is also, before we get to the question, it's a big day or a big week in AWA history.
It is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, that it was 48 years ago this week. 48 freaking years. Nick Bockwinkel defeated Vern Gagne in St. Paul to win the AWA Heavyweight Championship. I was in attendance, so God, I must have been 2 years old. And the amazing thing about it, is as it happened, I'm thinking to myself, well, we got a controversial ending here. This isn't going to stick. Stanley Blackburn will stick his nose in again, and but miraculously, the AWA did not have cameras at the St. Paul Auditorium that night. So there was no way to review the tape. And with the assistance of Bobby Duncombe and with referee Paul Pershman, Nick Bockwinkel defeated Vern Gagne in 1975. And Vern, I think at that point, Joe, officially passed the torch at that point.
He did, although he did get the strap back after 75, did he not?
Yeah, he did. But I mean, kind of officially for anybody with any kind of a lengthy championship reign, he trusted Nick enough. Nick had already been here 5 years, and that was long enough. And Vern passed the torch.
Yeah, looking back, and Vern's age by that point, it was the marking of the end of the, shall we say, when Vern was up on top without. Yes. He still was on top, but this was the beginning of the end of the run for Vern Gagne, because it would have been, let's see, was it May of 1980 when he had his retirement? 81 when he had his retirement match. Yeah. And, so we're 6 years short of that.
Yep.
And as we all know, Vern came back a couple of times after that.
We saw that cardigan sweater come leaping in over the top rope, more than once. And of course, his kind of dreadful cage match with the Sheik at Wrestle Rock. But nonetheless, for us Bockwinkel supporters back in the day, when we found out this decision was going to stick, I mean, it was euphoria. But again, 48 years ago, great era in the AWA. And you couldn't blame Bobby Heenan for that one, because Bobby was not in the corner of, and Bobby always said that, hey, when Nick won the title, you can't blame me. I wasn't there. So accurate.
A nice little swerve, because I'm sure fans going into there thinking without Bobby Heenan in this corner, there was no chance that Nick could win. Ha! Exactly. They was wrong.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. Great little swerve, as you said, Joe. Let's go ahead and kick it off by throwing the first one to you, Joe, from Jared Siegel. I grew up watching the AWA and got a kick out of Al DeRusha. He seemed to be a jack of all trades. Can you tell us about him behind the scenes?
Oh, I could do the rest of the show about the behind the scenes with Al DeRusha. Let's start off with the obvious. And a question I've been asked: there is no blood relationship between Al DeRusha and Captain Kangaroo, despite there's Al. So Al had a back surgery. Tells me the story. He had I believe it was his first back surgery sometime prior. So they're in the locker room, and look what these three do to him. And if this would have come out at the time, talk about breaking kayfabe. You got Mad Dog and Blackwell in the same shot. Hell, even Mad Dog and Nick in the same shot. Yeah, but what a great picture. Al has the original and did get it autographed by all three.
But I mean, I think that shows how much they all liked Al, because they were all willing to be a chiropractor for him.
Yes. Yeah. Al was...
He transcended, kayfabe.
Al was a jack of all trades. He started in the carnival industry, which is where professional wrestling started. Worked his way to be a runner for WTCN back in the day. And from there, he worked his way up. He was directing Lunch with Casey. He directed, God, I'm trying to think of the other show. A ton of those shows during the 1960s that were live in the Twin Cities, Al directed them. And his career, and then, working at WTCN, the AWA did the shows from there, and it was just a natural melding of Al DeRusha becoming involved with professional wrestling. About, gosh, what was it? 2015 or 2016, Al's career was rewarded and he was inducted into the Minnesota Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And I was extremely honored to, Al invited me to go there. I produced his induction video into it. And Al's been inducted into the Outdoor Amusement Business Association Hall of Fame for the work that he did there, as well as I think also the Showman's League of America, but I'm not positive on that one. But phenomenal career as a person. I've had the pleasure and honor of working with him for many years doing the OABA Hall of Fame induction videos. And more times than not, in fact, it's not even more times than not, pretty much every single time we would sit down for an edit session on the OABA videos, to no one's surprise, I would say, guess what we ended up talking about? Old AWA stories and the stories that Al shared with me. Just legendary. And it's where I learned a lot of things about a lot of the guys who came before I did, the Billy Robinsons of the world. The Wally Carbo stories are just, you honestly would think that they were made up. They are that funny. But Al, I got nothing bad to say about Al. I really don't. I consider him one of my best friends in the professional wrestling business that I've done. And he's going through some health issues at the moment. Al's, I believe, we're around his birthday. I'll have to look it up here, but his birthday is coming up. If it's not transpired by the time this airs. But Al, if you are listening, love you. Hope you can battle through your current issues, and I'll be over to have that lunch with you here soon.
Any guy that refers to a jar of Parmesan cheese as a gimmick, hand me the gimmick, is all right by me. So God love you, Al DeRusha. What a great guy.
He still refers to pretty much everything as a gimmick. I talked to him. I could have a 5-minute call with him and the gimmick line comes up 3-4 times easily.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone in my short time doing this podcast last couple of years. I haven't.
I guess it's me and you. Chris got gimmicked.
He got gimmicked. Oh, there he is. Wait a minute. Is
there? Back? I am. There okay. I am. Yeah, for some reason. Something gimmick. See, I was saying something nice about Al DeRusha, and I feel like maybe there was some sort of like, I don't know, maybe somebody that didn't like Al. But I don't know anybody that didn't like Al.
Vernsky, yeah,
from Beyond the Grave. This one for you, Mick, from John Zimmerman. The Crusher was so incredibly popular in the Minneapolis area. Was his cousin Dick the Bruiser as popular as Crusher?
Great question. Crusher in the Twin Cities area and the AWA, we can talk about his popularity, preceded Hulk Hogan in terms of, the overall popularity and the longevity. Crusher was in the AWA, in the Twin Cities area, more popular than Dick the Bruiser. There's Crusher, classic. That's when he had the AWA Singles Championship in 1965. And Bruiser was more over in like the Chicagoland area and Indianapolis and those places. Bruiser would come in a couple of times a year into the AWA to have a tag team run with Crusher, maybe against Larry Hennig and Harley Race or that type thing. But I think on the overall in the AWA outside of maybe Chicago, Crusher was certainly more popular, but Bruiser had legions of fans, in his territory, in the WWA area in Chicago, Indianapolis, Hammond, and that type of thing. But what a great combination. Legendary.
I feel we have to clarify one of the things, part of his question was his cousin, Dick the Bruiser. They were not related. Just, to clarify that. I think most people know that, but they were indeed not blood relatives, but they should have worked together well as a tag team.
Well, they looked like brothers, and in pro wrestling, that's all that matters. If you both have a crew cut, you're brothers or your cousins or your sisters or something like that. But Dick the Bruiser, what a legend. Legendary.
Yep. You got me with the sister. That's man, so many questions. This one for you, Mick, from Jeffrey Tyler. Beside Otto Vons, out of all of the AWA champions over the years, who was the most surprising? I think this is a good question because there are people that came in from other territories that held the title, but to me, I don't necessarily connect them with the AWA.
It's interesting because the AWA did not have a lot of champions in their 30-year history, and a lot of them, like Vern and Crusher and Mad Dog and Nick, were multi-time champions that took up a lot of that era. Couple of guys that were champions in the AWA, Fritz von Erich, and I should point out that both of these guys that I'm going to mention were 1 week champions. They were 1 week transitional champions in the Omaha area. For whatever reason, the AWA had a working agreement with promoter Joe Dusek in Omaha, gave him the straps every once in a while. Fritz von Erich was one of those that defeated Vern Gagne in Omaha, held the title for exactly 1 week, and then lo and behold, Vern won the championship back from Fritz von Erich. And the other, of all people, is the mighty Igor, Dick Garza, who defeated Mad Dog Vachon to win the AWA heavyweight title. Again, it's a localized, centralized promotion in Omaha, or title change, I should say. But yeah, Dick the Bruiser, or Fritz von Erich, and the mighty Igor both held the AWA heavyweight championship, albeit for 1 week apiece. Some things
You don't really see that too much today.
No.
I mean, the belts change a lot more frequently than they used to. We talked about earlier. I mean, Vern had a 5+ year run, then Nick followed that up with 5+ years. I know Roman Reigns had a lengthy run. Is he still champion in the WWE?
He's still champion. Of course he is. He'll probably be champion, I would guess, through the 28th century.
But
I feel like that was all about the marketing. Today's superstar has got to be the longest reigning. But how come, guys? I mean, was it? I mean, looking back on it, do you have any idea why maybe they just had these 1 week champions and then they, got the belt off of certain individuals?
I think the 1 week title reigns, Chris, were more box office. Specifically, you set up a feud in the Omaha area. Omaha was kind of its own thing. In a sense, Chicago kind of was too. But, it's just, set up a feud, give it to them for 1 week, pique the fans' interest, and then, give it back to Vern.
Okay. I was just curious because, I kind of like those 1 week reign because they come out of nowhere and then it's like, boop, you drop it back. But yeah, we just don't see that much anymore.
Yeah, and in most cases, and especially with tag teams, you didn't hear about it. If there was a title change, it was kept quiet. When it made the AP or UPI wire services, and you saw it in the Star Tribune that Bockwinkel and Stevens won the title in Denver, then you knew it was going to stick.
Okay. All right. This one is for me from Bill Dobbick. Maybe it's been addressed before, but are we allowed to show old video clips from the early days of the AWA? We don't own the video, so it's it's a touchy situation because of the ownership rights. There are certain ways that you can have it be part of your program, but there are certain acknowledgments and ways that you have to go about it. So I'd love to be able to just sit here and say we could play clip after clip after clip, but the reality is, because it's an intellectual property and it's owned by WWE, it's a very tricky situation when you're dealing with trademarks and videos and how much of it you can play.
And then too, we've talked about this before, as far as early AWA footage going back to the 60s. I mean, that is just like,
it doesn't exist, right?
No, it's a piss in the ocean. I mean, it's just.
I mean, there is footage that does exist of the 60s and 70s. It's just not a lot of it. And as you said, I mean, the WWE bought the AWA. We closed that sale in March of 2003. So they own everything. So if you see something on YouTube, somebody else posts, they don't own it. You know how YouTube works, but the WWE owns it, and that is not a sleeping bear that I think we want to be poking.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Actually, fall back at me. Yeah, exactly. But kind of, Mick, tell us why, for those that don't know, tell us why that footage doesn't exist. Because we could say, well, okay, it's not out there, but why does it not exist?
It was a dollars and cents issue with no foresight whatsoever by the promoters back in the day, and the AWA wasn't the only one to do it. You would tape a show, and then when you had outlived the usefulness of that particular broadcast, you taped over it. You used the same tapes over and over again, cost saving measure. And sadly, all the Larry Hennig Harley race against Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, or the Vern Gagne against Gene Kiniski, whatever it might be, it's gone. And it wasn't just pro wrestling that did it. A lot of entertainment venues or their television shows did it too. Tonight Show, whatever, the footage is gone. And how sad is that? But as Joe has said many times, there was no foresight. There was no looking into the future thinking, man, this stuff is going to be a gold mine. It's like your baseball cards used as, noisemakers on bike spokes.
Oh, yeah, and the spokes, yeah.
Reruns were not a thing.
Right, exactly.
And so nobody thought about it. In fact, if, just a quick little side note, I remember growing up and there would be no television overnight. Right. You'd get this ends our broadcasting day. You might have the flag waving in the background, and then it'd go to color bars for several hours. And so television had not evolved, certainly not to where it is today, but it didn't even evolve to where it ended up being in the late, even early 70s, where reruns started. That's where I learned about Gilligan's Island and the Flintstones. We're on afternoon reruns. And that was not a thing in this early to mid, even into the late 1960s. So as he said, Mick, it wasn't just the AWA, it was other promotions and other productions that just did not have the foresight to keep all of these in the can, as we say.
There you go.
And before we get to the next one, guys, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Rate, review, give us a thumbs up. All of that helps to growth with the algorithm.
We'll take any finger up. Any
finger, yes. Even if it's that one from the Big Nipple, Joe Chupik himself. God, that's still a great gimmick. I don't even know who named you the Big Nipple, but I kind of
did. You.
Did I do it?
It was you, yeah.
It was. Oh, I was like,
so
man,
when we market the T-shirts, you'll get the royalties.
I'll get the royalties called the Big Nipple.
Well, can we at least go the Polish nipple?
No,
the big Polish nipple. That's too much.
No. I don't want to find out how you even think that I have like big nipples.
I don't give a shit, to be honest with you. But
it doesn't have to be factual. It's wrestling. It can be whatever we want it to be.
That's right.
Very true.
Exactly
very
right.
true.
Elapsed time 2 hours.
All right, for the big nipple. From George Torgeson, you've talked so much about the infamous Whitewater AWA show. My question is, why in the world would Vern have had the tag title switch over to the Midnight Express in such a small town? And kind of take us who the tag team champs were and how that all kind of went down, and why in Whitewater when it was apparently just so stinky of a production value.
So Jerry the King Lawler and superstar, excuse me, Bill Dundee had the straps going into Whitewater. The straps needed to get dropped because, well, Lawler and Dundee really, they weren't full-timers here. They were from Mid-South. That's where they were based. So the straps needed to get changed. Vern had gotten the Midnight Express, who had a great run in the NWA. They brought in Paulie Dangerously. There they are. And it was just, it needed to get changed. Now, why Whitewater? Well, again, it was a timing thing. It was a taping for All Star Wrestling and ESPN Championship Wrestling. And during this time, this was not a good time for the AWA as a company. And so that's why we went to Whitewater, and that's why the production looked like the drizzling shit. Still the worst, to this day, the worst production that I have ever been involved with. And I've probably been on about 1,000 sets in my career.
You still have that? You still have that Whitewater video?
Oh God, no! I flushed that down the toilet years ago. When we redid, brought the AWA back in the pay-per-views, I intentionally stayed away from anything from Whitewater because I was afraid that the pay-per-view outlets would say, "Yeah, nice try, but no, we're not going to air this." It was just that bad.
Joe, I felt so bad for that rat that died on the conveyor belt running the power for the Whitewater show. It was
well, I know you felt bad for it, but it was one of your gerbils, not a rat. So just
that video would be great on our podcast. I mean, it would be an upgrade for our podcast.
Having a gerbil on?
Well, this is what's really AWA Unleashed After Dark, right?
Gerbil, we could do an hour with the gerbil. Why not?
Well, yeah, I know you have many times, but
wow. Okay, so let me ask you, because you're talking about Dundee and Lawler being out of Mid-South. Why the Midnights? Because the Midnights to me were an NWA team.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's because they were an NWA team and they had some recognition in nationally, or as national as you could be in wrestling at that time. And they were two names, two guys who certainly could work extremely well. And they had Paulie Dangerously. So, why them specifically? I'll put it this way. Why not? Take a look at who else we had in the territory. And there were others, but they were a good fit. And I'll go back to Lawler and Dundee needed to drop the straps because they weren't really full time. It's sort of like when Fritz, we're talking earlier, when Fritz won the AWA title.
Sure.
Fritz really wasn't in the AWA. He wasn't a mainstay here for 6 months or brought in as a special tag team partner. Things are done for a reason. And as it relates to the tag team straps, it needed to be done business-wise to put the straps on the Midnight Express and the Dangerous Alliance.
Okay. I was just curious because you're talking about a Mid-South team beating an NWA team for AWA titles. So that was just kind of something that just kind of crossed my mind. This is from Terry Lee Anderson. Love the show. Would it be in the cards to devote an entire show to one of the best ever to come from Minnesota, Kurt Hennig? To me, he was a terrific talent. One of the best talents of all time. Unfortunately, I feel like he's more appreciated now posthumously than he was when he was with us, which is a shame because you look at him now and I feel like he's one of those guys that no matter what the era was, he'd be able to fit in. But we did a couple hours to him earlier on. Go back and check the archives. We did do a 2 hours to Curt Hennig.
And once again, the invitation to Joe Hennig to come on our podcast at any time to discuss not only his career, but his dad's career. And I would extend that to Amy Hennig. You know, Amy, Curt's daughter had a very short run as a pro wrestler, but I said it, recently, and I'll say it again. In the 1980s, there was nobody better than Curt Hennig. And you look back on some of that old footage of Curt in the ring, some of the things that he did, just a phenomenal talent. Yeah. And when you look at the early Curt Hennig, kind of that milquetoast, babyface, nondescript Curt Hennig, and then you see what he became as Mr. Perfect. And before that, in the AWA, when he was Cool Curt, and he was the heavyweight champion of the world, one of the all-time greats. You can't have a top 10, let alone a top 5, without Curt Hennig.
In 2001, we went down to Florida to do. We had Mean Gene, Vern, and we had set up a ring in a studio down there. And that's where we taped 3 of our open and closes and wraparounds for 3 AWA pay-per-views that we had done for on demand, which was huge for us because we were just on satellite providers before that. Anyway, the night before the taping, I got, shall we say, kidnapped by Brian Knobs and forced to go over to his place, and we might have had a beer or 12, but
sounds kind of nasty, really.
Trust me, the next morning I felt nasty. Stayed out way too late. But I bring that up because the conversation, one of Brian's neighbors had come over, and so we're talking wrestling, and Brian just asked me flat out. He goes, "Joe, I know who you're going to say, but flat out, right now, today in the business, who is the best in the game?" And without hesitation, I said that it was Curt Hennig. And Brian looks at me, looks at his friend. He goes, I knew what that answer was going to be. There was no doubt. Curt at that time was the best in the business overall. His presence, even though his bumps were, shall we say, over the top, but that was part of the charm. It was the perfect reaction for the perfect wrestler.
That's a perfect way to end that question, Joe. Well done. This is for you, Mick, from Ron Turchik. Is there any footage of the Saturday Night at Ringside episode with the reunion of the old AWA stars?
Well, first of all, that may be my single favorite night in all the years I've been doing this. It was the Saturday Night at Ringside 2nd anniversary special. So this would have been in 1990. And we had a lot of the old AWA legends in for a reunion type show. There you see him. There is Stan Kowalski to the left, Al DeRusha, Mad Dog Vachon with the Baron, apparently some type of growth coming out of Mad Dog's head, the Baron von Raschke, and then Larry the Axe Hennig. We had them on set, and it was just extraordinary. Does the footage still exist outside of maybe a VHS tape here and there that somebody might have? No, it doesn't. I'm pretty damn sure that all those old 3/4-inch tapes are long since gone. And again, you're going back 33 years, 32 years. My God, it's hard to believe, but what a night that was. And these guys were like an old family reunion when they saw each other in the studio. A lot of hugging, a lot of how the hell you been, and the stories were just flowing like water. And what a night.
Make no mistake, there is a camaraderie in the business. And when, like in anything that you do, you see an old coworker you haven't seen for years, it just brings back memories. Maybe some bad, like to think mostly good for these guys. They're grown teenagers Every single one of them in that shot were just grown teenagers. And for them to get back together again, Mick, God, I wish I would have been on that set.
Oh, it was phenomenal. And I mentioned before, we went out to grab a bite to eat afterward in the St. Paul area there. And the fans flocked to the table where these guys were. It's like they hadn't missed a beat. And it was tremendous. So
was there ever any concern? Because I mean, that was still kind of in that era of kayfabe. I mean, any concern about perception from the fans? I mean, I know that they're all all villains per se, but still.
No, there really wasn't, because a lot, the guys were for the most part all retired. The dog, of course, had his accident, so he wouldn't do it. The Baron was the only one, I think, that was kind of still actively involved in the business. But it was more like hero worship. It was more like, oh, my God, there they are. And it was, I can't begin to tell you what a wonderful night that was.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks pretty damn cool. This is for you and, for both of you guys. From Pistol Paul Anthony, you guys made reference to a Twin Cities card called Twin Wars that featured Ric Flair. Do you happen to remember who else was on that show and when exactly it was held? I know that we had talked about doing a show about Twin Wars down the road, but who wants to start out with this one?
Joe, take it, because you were there and it was your wheelhouse.
Well, again, and we brought it up before. This was the last hurrah, the last big show attempt at the St. Paul Civic Center for the AWA. Going into it, nice. Wow, I haven't seen that in a long time. Well, there answers your question as to some of the other talent on there. But, it was Twin Wars for the Twin Cities, Twin Wars for the two different leagues and their two championships. But sadly, this one flopped miserably. I think we might have gotten maybe 2,000 people, 1,500, 2,000 people in the St. Paul Civic Center. And we're talking about a venue that was holding 18,000 plus. In the AWA.
You look at it on the surface and you've got a lot of, Ric Flair, Brian Pillman, Nikita Koloff, Larry Zbyszko, Destruction Crew, Brad Riggins. Like, it looks like you've got enough there. I mean, if nothing else, you would figure Flair would be able to at least bring enough people in.
Well, Chris, not only that, but it's 1990, so NWA Worldwide is in the market here.
Aren't you guys trying to count on that NWA rub? I mean, by bringing in a guy like Flair?
Of course, you would think, or you would have thought, that just the mention of Ric Flair coming back to his home state would have sold tickets. As Joe said, it didn't. And it was, you look at the talent on that show, and then you look at that crowd, and like we've talked about before, Joe, you knew that was it. It was the nail was in the coffin, and it was just a matter of time. And you look at the lineup. That was the night, of course, that Ric Flair wanted his payoff from Vern, and Vern reminded him that he owed him 10% for training him. And that was the night that all went down. And so it kind of crashed and burned. But the last vestige of big stuff, allegedly, for the AWA.
I will say that even if Hulk Hogan would have been on that card, that the AWA was still not going to, might have gotten 3,000 people. It was not going to get close to it. And the reason for that is everything leading up to it. Yeah, on the surface, looking back at it now, it was a pretty decent card. But where the AWA was at that point, the fans had gotten, shall we say, bitten several times leading up to it before. And
how so? How did the fans get bitten leading up to it? Just like a bait and switch, bad advertising, like
a big part as a fan to me is going to an event and having that event, having the atmosphere of a big crowd, getting involved with the show. Hell, take a look at a current WWE show today, and I guarantee you that at least half of the people that attend that are not true weekly wrestling fans. They're there for the event, like they're like this going to the state fair type of a thing.
Okay.
Well, to use the state fair analogy, if the state fair suddenly had only 2 rides on the fairway and only a handful of vendors, and it was slowly scaled back over the years, and they do that for a few years, and it's the exact same vendors. You only have corn dogs, and it was the AWA was on such a downslide by the time Twin Wars happened that the negativity surrounding it was there was just no interest to go into it. I don't know what our All-Star Wrestling numbers were at that time, but that was the vehicle to drive people there. And I think it'd be safe to say the numbers were a small fraction of what they were in the heyday.
So what was because you were there, Joe, and you said that this was one of the last gasps. What was the hope, or what was the attitude going into it? And then conversely, what was it like after that event?
Well, going into it, it was the hope that there would at least be a strong enough card to try to build some momentum to do another card.
Okay.
But, so the hope was there, but it's, and I use analogies a lot, but it was like somebody being on life support and then the plug being pulled, but they're still breathing on their own. And you think that, okay, there might be some hope. The reality is they're just, it wasn't there. They weren't, the AWA was not strong enough to come off of life support. And after that event,
wow.
It wasn't very long before we started just doing pre-recorded shows using old footage, and it was solemn. It was solemn in the office. In fact, I ended up getting my pay cut in half to produce those other shows because there just really wasn't. There's nothing going on with the AWA.
You got to throw something in here too. Again, this is an attempt by the AWA to work with another promotion. It didn't work at Super Clash in 1988. They thought that, maybe bringing Ric Flair in and NWA could do it, get the rub from the other promotions. First of all, there was no build up to these matches. All of a sudden, you got Ric Flair and Brian Pillman headlining an AWA card. Why? Nikita Koloff working against Larry Zbyszko. There's somewhat of a history there, but nothing that would impact people to go get their tickets. So the whole thing was just, as Joe said, the train left the station, and sad to say it. And the NWA had worked hard here. They'd worked shows. They drew okay, but the NWA never drew 15, 16, 17,000 people here. Even they weren't doing very well. It was over.
Yeah, I got to add one thing, that there was actually a third attempt to work with other promoters, and that would have been Pro Wrestling USA.
Yes.
When it was the NWA and the AWA. And, well, I mean, matches were good, numbers were good there, but it just became an issue with the promoters. It's always been a challenge when you get 2 promoters in the same room trying to agree on something.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you kind of explained it that way. It kind of talks about the negativity of the AWA, and I know we don't want to always, dwell or talk about it, but when you were, you mentioned just how this was kind of the last gasp. I just wanted to know like the difference in like that event and then after. So I just kind of wanted to see how it all worked out chronologically. So
and honestly, Chris, there wasn't a huge letdown after the event.
Right.
Because we all knew
expectations were so low.
Yep.
Going into Twin Wars, to use yet another analogy, it's the equivalent of being broke and buying that Powerball with your last $2 and hoping that you hit.
Okay. All right. We got about 10 minutes here left, guys. We can get a few more in, and again, we'll continue to roll questions over. This is for you, Mick, from Nate Zermack. I'd like to ask each of you, if you could book one guest from AWA's past who is really controversial, who would it be? Outstanding show, guys. Look forward to it every week. Well, thank you, Nate. Appreciate that. And I think there's one name that kind of sticks out here, Mick.
If we could book anybody to be on this show that has a controversial history in the AWA, I would go with Colonel De Beers, our friend Ed Wiskoski. And certainly, I don't think there's any question the most controversial storyline or angle in AWA history was his kind of racist angle with Derek Starfire.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, he didn't want to get in the ring with Jimmy Snuka. In other words, basically, if you're not Caucasian, I'm not going to get in the ring with you. Ed's a great guy, and I would love to have him on the show and get his take on that angle back then. Probably the last guy, Joe, that got legitimate heat, real hatred heat in the AWA was Colonel De Beers. I mean, the fans were all over him.
Well, not only the fans, but the stations and ESPN. That just created a whole ton of controversy. And, I know that controversy sells, but in this instance, it did not. It did not. But I'll agree with your pick. Love to have Ed on the show. I haven't talked to him in many years. That'd be an interesting hour, I think.
I know he's been having some health issues. Excuse me. I saw him a couple of years ago at CAC. He looked good at the time, but maybe you never say never in the wrestling business, let alone on this podcast. So we'll see.
Yes.
Yep. We've been working for a lot of people, and we got a lot of things out there that are percolating. But you said, Mick, when it comes down to health, people have to take care of themselves. Number one.
Yeah.
This is for you, Mick, and we'll see if we can get a couple more of these in. From Leo Bowness. Hopefully I said that name correctly, Leo. Thanks for the weekly trip down memory lane, guys. Love the chemistry. My question is, I've heard more than once that Eddie Sharkey fired a shot at Vern Gagne. Is that true?
Well,
and maybe we just end with this one because we'll let's end with this one. We got about 10 minutes or so.
Well, yes and no. Eddie didn't fire directly at Vern. I believe there was a picture of Vern or a poster of Vern in the wrestling office at the Dyckman Hotel and downtown Minneapolis. And we're not speaking out of turn here because Eddie Sharkey has acknowledged this. People say, "Hey, did you actually do this?" And he says, "Yeah." In typical Eddie Sharkey fashion. The poster money didn't come in. There's our good friend Eddie. And Eddie had a beef with Vern of a personal nature. And thank God the wrestling office was closed. I believe Eddie probably had nothing better to do on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning, whatever. Went downtown Minneapolis, and shot up the windows at the wrestling office at 605 Dyckman Hotel. And I believe he actually pointed the pistol at a picture of Vern. So did Eddie actually take a shot at Vern? No, he did not. But this is kind of legendary about Eddie Sharkey. There was no nonsense when it came to Eddie, his animosity towards Vern. If Eddie thought that Vern had wronged somebody close to him or somebody in the business, didn't have to be Vern Gagne. Eddie was kind of a vengeful guy. And everybody knew that Eddie did it. Nobody pressed charges. Eddie, of course, until years later denied doing it, but everybody knew, and
they just chalk it up to Eddie being Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie being Eddie, and it's kind of a badge of honor these days. When you ask Eddie about it, if somebody said to me, "Hey, did you fire that gun?" Are you kidding? No, I did it. So that's pretty typical of Eddie, and that's part of. And believe it or not, that's part of Eddie's charm. Thank God nobody was there. No Bill Casisto, no Wally Carbo, no Vern Gagne, and just a couple of bullet holes, and all was forgiven. Go ahead.
What year would that have been, Mick?
That would have been, I'm guessing, 64, 65-ish.
And the reason that I bring that up, and this is what I find interesting, is it was done so early, yet Vern still had Eddie Sharkey referee several times for the AWA after that.
He did, but there was a lapse of time. There was a lapse of 18 years. And the reason that Eddie came back to referee for Vern was because Eddie had the Road Warriors in his back pocket. Vern wanted to get the Road Warriors. Eddie was kind of a go-between. And, so Eddie had kind of Vern over a barrel a little bit. And I've seen pictures since then of Vern and Eddie at Cauliflower Alley. They got the shit-eating grins pasted on, like they swallowed a coat hanger. Like everything was all copacetic. But one of the great legendary stories, Eddie Sharkey and the Dykeman Hotel.
For years, I've always said never say never in the wrestling business, and you alluded to it earlier. And the reference that I had always used was, if Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon can still get along after all of the shit that went on between them, then anything can happen in wrestling. I think I'm going to have to change that to say if Eddie Sharkey and Vern Gagne can work together, then anybody can work together in this business.
I mean, if somebody took a gun and shot at a picture of me, I would be like, I don't think there's really much we can do to come back from you blatantly having this act of wanting me murdered.
Well, as far as guys working together, look at us. Who would figure from week to week that the three of us, could mend fences and, come back on again. So it happens. Probably we're right there behind Eddie Sharkey and Vern Gagne.
Mick, I don't know why you say that, because I have nothing but I hold you in the highest esteem. Well, as far as you know, anyway.
Yeah, if only they could see the group text.
Well, I don't need you holding me up with any steam anywhere. So let's just, keep going.
All right. We want to do one more, and then we'll give some shout outs here, guys.
Yeah. Let's do that one that you have there. Can we go to I believe it was the last question.
Okay. Yeah. The last one.
The tag team question.
Yes. Number 15. So we got a few more. We will roll over. All right. This is for you, Mick, from Macho Bob. He heard there was a rugged tag team that were set to debut in the AWA, but then the company closed their doors. Mm-hmm. They were going to be billed as Clooney and Looney. Do you have a picture of this potential Hall of Fame team?
Do we have a picture? Are you kidding? It's us. I have a picture. We have a picture. And Chris, I know you'll put it up on the screen hopefully soon. We have a team.
I believe this is it. Yes, Clooney and Looney.
Clooney and Looney. There they are, ladies and gentlemen. Clooney and Looney. This tag team, as I understand it, was running roughshod in the southeastern part of the United States. The AWA made the phone call, but shit, as things happened, just as they were boarding the plane from South Carolina to come up to the Twin Cities area and compete in probably the Team Challenge Series, everything just kind of shut down. And there you see that's George Clooney with the white face mask in the back, and that is Joe Looney in the front there. That is the team of Clooney and Looney, which I believe would have been destined for tag team greatness in the AWA.
Oh, one of the all-time greats.
No doubt. No doubt. Right up there with Herman Schaefer and Woody Wilson. No question about that. But look at that. I mean, talk about two scary guys, especially the guy in the front.
So
I mean, it's a piercing. I am absolutely nutso look, isn't it? It's like he wants to just like eat you alive.
The man is deranged.
Yeah, deranged is a good word, Mick. That's a good word.
So the story behind this incredible tag team that never got the light of day, unfortunately, this was actually during the pandemic.
No kidding.
And and I had called Baron up just to see how he was doing, and offered him a copy of all of the AWA pay-per-views that I had done. And so, everybody's locked down at home and so forth. And so I asked Jim, hey, I'll come over. I can just leave them for you. You can grab them, just give you something to do. So went over there. He opened up the garage door. We did keep our distance. And I said, hey, can I get a selfie with you? And I'm just thinking Baron's going to be Jim, right? Well, of course. And that is all you need to know.
I wish I would have seen you guys, especially you, in the ring with the Road Warriors. Man, that would have
loved to have seen you in a handicap match against Hanson and Brody. Oh, you know what? With Mad Dog in their corner.
Man, you are a vengeful sort.
More like a vengeful son of a bitch, but I'll take the sort thing.
What a great picture that is. 8x10s would have sold T-shirts, mugs, everything. Clooney and Looney.
Can you imagine a German and a Pole tag teaming? Unheard of in the earlier years.
It's wrestling. Anything can happen.
Man, that would have been a great team to take the belts off of Lawler and Dundee.
In Whitewater.
In Whitewater.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Let's wrap it up here, guys. I would have personally, Joe, I would have loved to have seen the push by Clooney and Looney, but we'll have to maybe when maybe in our mind, in our fantasy booking, we can.
I think Baron would have been offended by being called Looney.
Oh boy.
Wow. Baron, don't watch this podcast either. That or I.
Wow. Oh.
All right. Shout outs, guys. Shout outs. And then we'll kind of remind the people what we got going on.
My shout out is to one of the Hennig clan, and it's to Hank Hennig. Hank did not enter the wrestling business as his dad Kurt did, or his grandfather Larry, or his brother. But Hank is such a wonderful guy. We talked to him at the AWA reunion. He has an open invitation too to come on to the show. Lanice has an invitation. Amy has an invitation. But Hank Hennig, good old country western music singing Hank Hennig. Shout out to you, Hank.
Seems such a nice guy. Just a polite, courteous, he was just a super nice guy.
Yes, sir.
My shout out goes to somebody we brought up earlier today. And because of his recent health issues, we'll put it that way. My shout out goes to AWA legend, ring announcer, promoter, director, Al DeRusha. Al, can't wait to have that lunch with you, my friend.
Yeah, just very much deserving of it. And I'm going to go with Tom Halleck from Winnipeg. Always is asking us questions and always responding and being interactive on YouTube and whatnot. So, Tom, appreciate you up there in the Peg, and I love Winnipeg. It's a great, great city, and good to have you on board. All right, I don't know. I know the next couple of weeks we've got some things that are kind of percolating. We don't have anything locked in, but we'll find something for next week, right? I mean, we have to because we're going to do a show.
I would almost guarantee we will have a guest.
Okay.
On the podcast. We have several people, not only that we want to get on the show, but they're asking, hey, you know what? I saw so-and-so, my old buddy on the show. I'd love to do it sometime. So I would say 90% count on a guest being on our show next week.
Okay. Well, we've got that. If you guys haven't, subscribe, rate, review, and keep an eye out again. Coming up in the next couple of months, we're going to be rolling out some new features, you guys. And we think you're really going to like it. We're going to try to expand this thing. We're going to need your help to expand this thing, but we think it's going to be worth it. So that's about all I can say, because I know that we're working really, really hard behind the scenes to kind of create some new features for you guys, and we hope that you're really going to like it.
And in conclusion, just a reminder, when Nick won the title in 1975, Bobby Heenan had nothing to do with it.